Okay, this is Hannah at the Wigan Borough Archives in Lee Town Hall on the 14th of July 2014. And I'd just like to ask the two ladies sat by me to just tell me quickly, what is your name, please?
Kathleen Pendlebury.
And feel free, you don't have to tell us this, but if you'd like to, your date of birth?
13/4/44.
And where were you born, please?
Whiston.
In Whiston. Did you grow up in Everton? No?
Yeah.
Yes, right. And could you tell me your name, please?
It's Barbara Hughes.
And if you don't mind, would you tell us your place and date of birth as well, please?
I was born in Wigan Road in Atherton, and I was born on the 6th of October 1947.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, today you've brought in some pictures from your own family history. So can you tell me a bit about that family history? Perhaps we could start with, who's this gentleman sat in the chair in the photograph?
That gentleman is my granddad, who is Mr. John Hilton, and he was in the rescue for the pits. He was in the first lot of rescuers who went to the Maypole and to Pretoria. And they showed the breathing apparatus to the Home Office, I believe it was.
Oh wow!
They were the
It was the first
mine rescue
mine rescue station.
The one in How Bridge,
yeah,
was
yes,
it?
It was the first mine rescue station.
And the picture there, you've got a picture of them in the breathing apparatus. Was that don't suppose you know the name of it? It wasn't the proto one, was it? Don't worry if you don't. It's just my curiosity.
Well, I've got a little letter somewhere which says.
Oh, how exciting!
He was one of the 5 to demonstrate the use of the apparatus to the Home Secretary and other officials from the Home Office in the year of 1909. So.
Wow!
It was the first.
Yes.
That first rescue station is disputed by somebody in Yorkshire.
Oh right.
Yeah,
what do they say?
I think they tried to claim that they were the first, but I don't know anything other than
That it was actually in Yorkshire.
War
of the Roses again.
Whether the dispute was ever, but they've always referred to that as the first one in the country.
Yeah. So you're.
And that's a letter from Fletcher Burroughs, who used to be the colliery owners, thanking him for the work that was done for 13.5 years as a pioneer of rescue work.
Oh, could I have a look at that letter, please? Oh, that's wonderful. Mind if I read it out?
Yeah.
Dear Sir, on behalf of the directors, I write to say how much we appreciate the work you have done as a pioneer of rescue work in the district during the 13.5 years you have been a member of the Atherton Collieries Rescue Team. It is now up to the younger men to carry on the good tradition established by you. Please accept this as a small recognition of your services. Yours faithfully, and it's signed by, it looks like to me, Clement Fletcher, who is the director, and it's dated the 21st of March 1922. How lovely. And you said you went to the Maypole and Pretoria pit. Has any stories passed down through your family about his experiences there, or with How Bridge, or anything like that? Has there been any oral history stories that have passed down?
Not to me.
No.
It was a JP.
Oh right, yes.
How long he'd been a JP, I don't know. That's a copy of the medal.
That he got
from the Maypole.
From the Maypole disaster.
That's still in the family.
And that's still in the family. And it says, John Hilton Esquire from the Moss Hall Coal Colliery Limited for able and kindly services rendered in exploring at the Maypole Colliery disaster, 18th of August 1908. Were there any family members who remembered him, or that you know of? Or is it all just through doing your own family history research and having these articles passed down to you that you've come across him?
No, well, obviously his family.
He died a long time
Yeah.
Mum used to just mention the fact that she used to kind of help him because he was a Labour councillor as well, and a strong union man, and she used to go and help him go around to people and things like that.
Help him with his campaigns and
yeah. I know I've got a letter somewhere that says about somebody who was ill, and I think it's this. No, sorry. But saying, well, although you have tried about this man. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry for the delay in answering your letter of the 17th instant in regard to the above named man. He brought an accident clearance paper from the doctor and asked us to transfer him from the permanent to the sick club. This we did at his request. Later he got another doctor's certificate that he was suffering from anemia as a result of the accident, and we then, of course, put him back on the permanent and paid him his arrears of compensation. Men such as this give both of us a lot of unnecessary trouble.
Oh wow, fabulous.
So,
and have you got anything else about John with you today? There's a picture, isn't there, of Pretoria Pit of the rescue workers coming out. There's that one, which is the Howbridge rescue team from 9 to 10. That's the one I'm talking about. Yes, we have a copy of the copy in the collections, and he's got 3 men in the apparatus. And which one do you think is John Hilton in that photograph there?
I think it's this one.
The one in between, the one in the middle. How amazing!
but this
That's him.
on here,
Yes.
there used to be another Hilton family. No, yeah, Jay's in the Jay's family, who my granddad was very friendly with, and one of Mr. Jay's sons actually said that was granddad.
Oh, wow.
He put his authorisation to that.
Oh, I can see. So on the picture you've written, it says Jack and then Giley Hilton,
Yeah.
and it was identified by James J, born 1900. How wonderful!
And James J used to be a headmaster of one of the schools. Well, he was very well known. I think, wasn't he, Kathleen?
Yeah.
In the Lee area.
In the Lee area. Do you remember which school it was? Just out of
I
curiosity.
think it was St Paul. Was it West?
I think it was one of the West
Twist-
ones.
Yeah. Not St Paul. St Peter's at Wesley.
So he's known by Jack's known as Jack, and he's also known as John as well.
Yeah, that's his Christian name. They used to
They always
change
used
it
to
not
change
to Jack.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you for showing us that. Anything else about Jack before we move on?
He was an active social worker. He'd been a member of the Atherton Urban District Council and of the Lee Board of Guardians, and he was made a Justice of the Peace in 1923.
Fabulous.
So he'd been a JP for about 6 years.
Do you know when he died, roughly?
The funeral took place on March 23rd, 1929.
Because, I mean, that really helps, doesn't it? Especially with the name Hilton in the local area. How have you found researching the name Hilton?
Well, I've not done any research at all. These are what were in my mum's collection of stuff.
Yes.
Because she was obviously very close to her dad.
Yeah.
And he'd wanted to go to war, but he couldn't go.
He couldn't go.
No, he wanted to go. And he was a friend of the Fletchers. They were good friends with the Fletchers.
Oh, and this obituary you've just given me is actually out of the Carbon magazine.
Yeah, which is the coal.
The Fletcher Burrows magazine, isn't
That's
it?
right, yeah.
Oh wow, fabulous. And what relation was he to you? Sorry, Kathleen.
Great-granddad.
Your great granddad, right?
And
Lovely.
that was something that he got back from
wow.
the Fletchers.
From the Fletchers.
Because of Philip Fletcher dying, he obviously sent something, and that's what came back.
It's
So thank you.
dated. It's a card, and it's dated 11th of June 1927, and it says, "Mrs. Philip Fletcher and family desire to thank you for kind expressions of sympathy extended to them in their recent bereavement, And they've written on, "And for beautiful flowers." Oh, how lovely.
And you've got a couple of pictures, haven't you, and then from something else.
Just looking for the this is all inherited from Joel.
It's all what, sorry?
Inherited from Joel.
The lady used to do
Oh,
a lot of
Joan-
research.
John
Asmananska.
yeah.
And it's all been passed to Kathleen.
I'm just looking for a copy of the headstone. That's is the
Oh.
write-up on.
Brilliant. So it's a page out of a book, it looks like. It says Plate 51, the Howbridge Rescue Party. This photograph taken between 1908 and 1910 shows clearly the type of breathing apparatus in use at the time. The Maypole disaster was one of the first, if not the first, in Lancashire in which breathing equipment was used. The primitive equipment seen here contrasts vividly with the type of equipment used today, and some experts believe that its use offered little extra protection to the members of the team. In this photograph are at least 2 men who lost brothers or cousins in the Maypole explosion, and who themselves took part in the rescue attempts. I don't suppose it wasn't one of John Hilton's relatives, no.
Not her.
And John Hilton died on the 20th of March 1929.
Thank you. That's great. Lovely.
That's the carbon one.
So, if I keep those there for the moment, can I take pictures of them after this? That's brilliant. Anything else you want to say before I move on about John Hilton? No, I've covered everything. Okay. So, do you know about anyone in your family who served in the First World War?
Yes, my mum had 2 brothers who served in the First World War. One was John Hilton and the other was James Henry Hilton. John Hilton was in the 5th Battalion of the Manchester Regiment, and he was actually killed out in Gallipoli. He became a Lance Corporal just before he died. He was a bugler, and we have actually got a diary which he wrote while he was going out there. He went to Alexandria first, and then he went off to Turkey. And the other one, James Henry, was in a Scottish regiment.
That was King's Own Scottish Border.
King's Own.
Scottish Borders, 7th/8th Battalion.
And I don't know very much about him, but
He was killed in action in his France and Flanders.
He was killed in action.
Yeah.
Right.
They were both killed in action.
yeah,
Right.
At the Somme, he's in the Soames.
You've got him.
He was killed in action in the 12th of August 1916 at Flanders, aged 25. He was buried at Flatiron Corps Cemetery. I don't know how you say this, Mametz, Somme, France. And he's also remembered in Edinburgh Castle.
Ah, and you've got in front of you a booklet from St Michael's Church in Howbridge. Is he remembered on a memorial in there as well?
He is, yeah. They're both remembered there and both on the cenotaph
Right.
at the bottom of Hamilton Street.
The Aberton Cenotaph. Right. So, you said that James Henry was 25 when he died, and I take it he was, as far as you're aware, he was born in Aberton, or he was at least definitely from Aberton. He lived
He's from
there.
Atherton, yes.
Yeah.
But at the time of his death, he lived in Tilsley.
Oh, right.
So yes, he did. Yeah. He got married and lived in Tilsley.
And he lived in Tilsley. And the John Hilton, yes, he died at Gallipoli.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about how old he was, or where he was living at the time, before he went
He was living
enlisted?
in Alberton or possibly Outbridge.
Yes.
He died on the 2nd of December
He would be
1915.
He was in Wigan Road because
Yeah.
in the census of 1911, is actually listed as Wigan Road. They moved actually to Wigan Road in 1910.
Right.
And so he would have been of an address in Wigan Road in Atherton. And he was 22 years old.
And John was...
And he was killed on the 2nd of December 1915.
Do you know how he was killed? Have you managed to find that information out about either of them? You've got an article there about, is that about John Hilton there?
Yeah.
Do you want me to?
Wait a minute. He was amongst the troops mobilised and sent out to Egypt at the outset of the war. He'd worked in the pits.
What's that you're reading there?
This is his obituary.
Oh, that's what you've got.
Is it the
Yeah.
same as this? So it's come
Yeah.
from the Lee Journal, and it's the one that says Territorial
That's
Bugler
correct, yeah,
killed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
could you read it out for us? Would that be okay?
Sorry?
Would you mind reading it out
Do you
for
want
us?
it all read
Please,
out?
please, all of it. That'd be great.
Right. Territorial Bugler killed. Official word was received at his home, 71 Wigan Road, on Wednesday morning that Lance Corporal J. Hilton had been killed in action at the Dardanelles. For 6 years, the deceased soldier, who was 21 years of age, had been a bugler in the Atherton detachment of the 5th Manchester Territorial Regiment, and he was amongst the troops mobilised and sent to Egypt at the outset of the war, prior to which he worked at one of the pits of the Astley and Tilsley Collieries Limited. In his last letter, written soon after receiving his stripes, Lance Corporal Hilton said, "If the Turks are not getting desperate, I'm a Dutchman, because they have tried to take a line off our chaps about 11 times, and they have been repulsed every time. Our fellows took 3 lines, and then when the enemy made a 5th counterattack, our fellows ran out to meet them and took another line. The Turks must have had a terrible slaughter, as they asked for an armistice which was granted them."
How does he feel reading out his words?
Yeah, it's a bit strange in that, yeah.
They were, if you read the diary, the food they got was meagre.
Oh, could you read us some bits from the diary? Would that be okay?
Just find it.
Oh, well, this one I've just picked up was on the 22nd of October. I'm not sure quite. Reveille was 5:30. Breakfast at 8 a.m. It was like going to a tea party. We had jam, eggs, bread and butter. While the orderly was fetching the eggs, he was seen to put his hand in the tin and get 2 eggs out and put them in his pocket. When he came to dish them out, he was too short. The result was he got reported and had to go to the orderly room, and he got sentenced to 7 days in the cells, and pay stopped.
That's fabulous. Any other little bits you'd like to read out?
Well, they used to have something they called skilly.
Skilly. It was like a consomme soup, and that's all they would get. To have an egg was
Well,
really
that was, yeah.
something special. You know, to actually get something. It's
Dinner was skilly.
Do we know what was in Skilly? What it was? Does he describe it?
That's 26th of September. Reveille, 5 o'clock, got up having a rough night with bugs and fleas. Many of us had to get up out of bed, there were so many. After cleaning up a little, we had breakfast, which consisted of dry bread and tea. This morning we were dished out with half a loaf, and it had to last us all day. For dinner we had 2 potatoes, nearly raw, unpeeled, and beef. After dinner we were paraded to the docks to unload the transport ship. It was 9 o'clock when we returned to the barracks, and we hadn't had any tea. When it did come, it only consisted of dry bread and a cup of tea.
Oh,
Skilly was a thin soup of gruel, usually served to prisoners. You will see that they did occasionally have their treats, but a lot was dry bread and skilly.
Does he talk about food a lot in the diary?
Yeah, that's what he talks about most.
Anything else he refers to in the diary that stuck out?
Well, the fact that they had to march from Atherton to Wigan, and they got their kit, so they went home afterwards. They went back home. But people lined the streets as they were going to Wigan.
Oh, how fabulous.
At Central Park, Wigan, had a route march in the morning till 11 o'clock. Then we went on the park and stopped there till 8 o'clock, when we were marched to the school and had to stop in till the morning. We were like prisoners. We got £2 of our bounty here. Went to church with rifles on Sunday at Central Park. It was here that we were asked to join for foreign service. Some refused. About Wednesday we were ordered to Littleborough and were up the greater part of the night carrying baggage to the drill hall ready for dispatch. We were up about 2 o'clock and marched to the station. It took just 3 hours to reach Littleborough on the L&Y railway. We had about a mile and a half march to the campground where we pitched tents. We stayed here about 12 or 14 days, most of the work being under instruction in manoeuvring and marching.
Is there any dates by the when he enlisted, when he went to the?
Yes. Diary of my time during mobilisation, August 4th, 1914. We were mobilised at 7:30 p.m. and we had to report ourselves to the drill hall straight away.
That's inevitable.
Some of the mobilisation papers were issued to them personally, but I was rather late, so mine was sent home. It was rather late when mine came, so we went to bed and it was 10 o'clock when I got it. And then on the 5th of August, we had to report at 10 a.m. and the morning was spent in signing papers, and it continued till dinner, when we were dismissed for dinner till 2:30, and the afternoon was continued in signing the papers. Then we were dismissed at 5 o'clock for the day. Dress drill orders passed by the doctor.
And he was a territorial, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So he'd have got his orders, wouldn't he, to go and not enlist, but to go and mobilise.
Mobilise.
Is that right? Yes.
I presume so.
Yeah.
I'm not well up on that, I must admit.
Anything else that stands out from the diary?
No, that is just an abridged version, I think. It's quite...
Does he talk about his experiences in Alexandria, or what he thought of Gallipoli, of Turkey?
Well, he talks about going on the Caledonian, the ship that took them across to Alexandria.
Right, what's the 9th to the 17th of September?
Is that it? Would you mind reading it out? Is that okay?
It was on the 9th of September 1914, about 3 o'clock, that we started from camp to the station, as we should have entrained about 3:45, but it got 5 o'clock before we got in the train. There were plenty of people at the station giving us a hearty send-off. We were riding all night and we arrived in Southampton at 7 o'clock, where we were ordered to give all matches up before we embarked on the Caledonian for Egypt. It was a long and tiresome ride on the train, but we landed all right. We boarded the vessel about 8 o'clock, but we did not start out of docks before 5 o'clock at night. The Caledonian was formerly a passenger boat sailing between Glasgow and America, but it had been made into a troop ship and had carried troops from England to France before we boarded it. When it sailed out of the harbour, it stopped in the English Channel a day, awaiting the other troop ships and an escort. When they landed to us, we made way for Gibraltar. It took us over a week to reach, but we had some bad sailing before we landed. We were all right, so we had been sailing 3 or 4 days, and some of them had never. We were all right till we had sailed 3 or 4 days when we landed outside the Bay of Biscay, and it tossed the boat up and down. Most of the men being bad, some of them had never sailed before. We got over it right enough, but I can tell you that the seasickness is a bad thing. We had a very good meet on board, considering being 2 regiments on board, 5th Manchesters and the 8th Middlesex. The 8th Middlesex had to get off at Gibraltar, so we had to call there, and we landed in Gibraltar on the 17th of August 1914 about 8:30. It was a grand place, and it looked to be a very hot place. There were all kinds of boats in the harbour, there being many prizes of war. It took us a day to get rid of them, and we were glad because it was more room for us. We started out about 5 o'clock, and it was a grand sight as we sailed out of the harbour to see the buildings lit up. Before we went out, a British cruiser came in with German prisoners on board, ready to be marched over the rock. The rock is wonderfully set out with the trees and buildings. We were stopped when we got into the open sea. What it was for I don't know, but it was rumoured that a German cruiser was in sight. We were only stopped for a few hours, then we started our journey on to Malta. It did not take us long on this stretch. We had no troops, for there had been from here, but we had cargo for one of the battleships which lay in port damaged. We landed in little over 3 days, and it was grand sailing. We reached about 8 o'clock, and before we had been fastened down proper, we were swarmed with hawkers selling fruit and underclothing at a very cheap rate. The hawkers had young lads with them who would dive in the water for a coin. The outstanding feature of the day was the cheering and shouting by French, British and Russian soldiers who were in the dock. It was the best day we had had since we left England. This occurred on the 21st of September 1914.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Anything else you'd like to share? If you want.
The next thing is when they go to Alexandria.
I mean, if you're getting tired, if you want to pick parts out of it, just quote little bits, that's fine.
And you can have this.
Thank
so
you.
If there's anything.
Did he mention the weather at all or anything like that when he was in, especially when he was in Turkey, when he was in Gallipoli?
Got a bit hard reading some of it in here because he used red ink.
Oh yes.
Just trying to see where. I mean, he did talk a lot about meals and the Rivale because, of course, being the bugler, he would have to be up to do the Rivale. And I know one place it says he didn't bother getting up when the alarm was called to get up, and then the sergeant major came in and threw the Rivale at 5:30. I did not get up straight away. About 5:45, the sergeant major came and caught us in bed. He never said anything to us, only asked me if my name was Albert. I said no, and I told him what it was. I thought I was for Cairo, as there was some going. Parade at 6:15 to 7:15. I did not go on it. I stopped in to fetch the bread. About 7 a.m. the sergeant came and told all those that the sergeant major had caught in bed were for orderly room at 7:15. There were others there beside us. Trustees, we all went in together. He charged us with, and that's where it stops. He doesn't write anything else after that.
Oh, is that his last entry?
That's his last entry on the Monday the 15th, 1914, so I don't know quite what there was after now.
So he died in 1915, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah. So it's so for about a year we're missing there from the diary. But what a fabulous piece. How does it make you feel when you read that diary, or knowing that you have that?
Well, knowing that we've got it, I think is great. You know, because how many other people have got, I know some people have got diaries, but you know, try to have a personal one that you can read. All right, he's not a very educated man in that respect, but gives you an insight of what happened and how they had to put up with it.
And was there any stories ever passed down about John or James Henry that you can remember, or do you remember anyone talking about the diary in your family or any of the other photographs? You know, how did you...
Oh yeah, it was always known that we had the diary. Mum had the cord that held the bugle. She had that for a long time till it got so moth-eaten that I said, oh, for goodness sake, throw it away. But we did have that for a long time, the actual cords and that.
Wow.
Yeah. They didn't really say much because life at that time, I suppose, they lost so many children. I mean, there was a brother and a sister, both died in 1915, I think it was. Beside
siblings of John and James Henry.
Yeah. You know,
and twins that were stillborn and buried at sea.
Yeah.
John Hilton, father to them, and him and his wife went to live in America, and they had twins up while they were sailing to America, which was stillborn, and they were buried at sea.
The John Hilton this John Hilton?
No, the father.
The father, the one who was involved in Howbridge rescue.
There would be siblings of that John.
Right.
Hilton.
Right.
Which we consider at the beginning of last century, that was quite a journey.
Yeah. Yes.
I think I have some. I did write the dates down at one stage of when some of them died and that. But I always remember Auntie Phoebe talking to my mum and saying she didn't know how my grandma coped losing 2 children in such a short space of time.
And when she said the 2 children, which of the siblings was she talking about? Because I presume altogether she lost...
Right, it was in 1914, in January 14th, 1914, Sarah Ellen Hilton died, and then Rex died on the 10th of March of the same year. Then, of course, the year after, she lost John Hilton, and the year after, I think it was James Henry died, and lost the twins had been stillborn. But they had 13 children in all.
Are the men remembered? You mentioned they were remembered on the Everton Cenotaph and they're remembered at Howbridge. Are they remembered anywhere else that you're aware of?
Well, they're on the family gravestone.
What does it say on there? Can you remember? Do you go and visit the gravestones? Okay.
Not now.
No.
I don't think Kathleen might do.
Well, I walk past
it. You walk past it, don't you? Because they're living nearby and taking the dog for exercise. So. Lance
Corporal John Hilton of the 5th Manchester's killed in action December 2nd, 1915, aged 22. He's got an ear. And also Private James Henry Hilton. So the headstone has dropped, so we're missing the bottom line.
Anything else that you want to...
Another daughter died.
Oh gosh.
2 daughters and 3 sons.
Elizabeth Ann.
Yeah.
1899, September 19th.
You just said died, didn't you?
Yeah.
So they had 7 altogether then, wasn't it? Plus the stillborn.
No, well, there was Sarah Ellen, Rex, Elizabeth Ann, 2 sons and twins.
7, yeah. Oh. That's right, isn't it? 7 children.
So it was my mum, Auntie Mary, Auntie Phoebe, Auntie Harriet, Uncle Fred, Uncle Arthur and Uncle Frank. That makes 14. Was it 13 or 14 in mother's youngest?
Gosh.
And I've got the, what's in the 1911 census with the names on of who lived in Wigan Road amongst my papers.
That'll tell you how many children they've had born alive.
Mm-hmm.
So the stillborn, presumably the stillborn babies won't be mentioned on there.
Yeah, there's Sarah Ellen Hilton, James Henry Hilton, Phoebe, John, Mary, Frank, Rex, Fred, Arthur, Harriet and Edith.
And where were they living at that point in 1911? Where did you say they were?
71 Wigan Road, Atherton, which was only a 3-bedroomed house.
Maybe no bathroom.
No bathroom. 1911.
Did your mum share any memories about?
Not mine, because
No.
My mum didn't know. No, it was. They used to all meet together on a Saturday morning, didn't they, and discuss all kinds of things. You know, as a family, they all met. It was a ritual, and I think they probably talked about it then, but they never
gone down.
said an awful lot about it at all, to my knowledge.
So when did you kind of discover this for yourself? I mean, you said you always knew, but when did you kind of perhaps start picking up the diary and reading it, or looking at the photographs, going?
Well, I got that through the archives from West Orton, the census. I suppose after my mum died, which was in 2000. You know, I knew about them, and I knew about Edinburgh, that the names were written there, because, well, one name was, because I'd been up and seen it.
Well, whose name was written
That's
there?
James Henry,
Because he was.
In the
Scottish.
regiment.
Yeah.
I'm putting them there because I've got them.
I suppose Mum did say 1 or 2 bits and pieces about her dad, but not an awful lot. They just took life for granted. Just carried on with it.
Anything else you want to discuss before we finish today?
So,
Do you think that's everything we've covered?
yeah.
I think so.
That's been really wonderful. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing that. That's been brilliant.